Is marketing one part of your business that still gives you a little bit of challenge? You're not really sure how to ramp it up, what to do better, how to analyze what's been working or setting goals? If so, then this episode is for you. Today, I sit down with Louda Peña, who answers your questions live on air. As always, I'm your referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Louda, welcome back.
Shawn, good to see you.
So you were the first person I get to say welcome back to. You are actually, your episode, more people reached out to me and had questions for you than any other guest that I've had on. So I'm having you back on, obviously, and to ask those questions to you directly. So this is a really cool, different Q&A session than we've done in the past.
Yeah, I was super surprised. I'm really glad that episode resonated. So I'm super happy to be back.
It did. I think, to give listeners context, you are a marketing expert, and most people, it's a very hard thing to understand marketing. It's challenging. It's aloof. It's really easy to spread yourself thin. I'm preaching to the choir.
Yep.
And so I think from the perspective of realtors, there's like, you have social media, you have direct, you have mail, you have all these things. And it's like, all right, we have so much time and we only have a finite amount of budget. What do we do? How do we do it? And so thank you. Again, I honor and appreciate your time. So I love that you're back here and contributing. If you could, just to give the listeners some context, in a sentence or two, can you give us just a 10,000 foot view of your career path of like, what do you do in marketing and your expertise?
Currently, my career path that has led me to here, which has been always in marketing and analytics, has led me to a place where I am being added to strategic teams. So I come in, I lead teams, I create teams that do marketing, that do analysis, that do product even. And I come in and I build those teams, but I also do change management. So I ensure that the company at a high level is functioning in a way where a sale can be met or a connection can be created. And I'm also setting KPIs and goals with the business owners and also for my teams. And eventually, I'm starting to move towards chief marketing officer, which I'm pretty excited about.
That is amazing.
Yeah, very exciting. Not what I thought I'd be doing.
It's not what you thought you would be doing?
It's not what I thought I would be doing. And I'm super excited now.
I feel like you have your leadership style is very approachable. And I actually genuinely feel that like in that role, you'd be just incredible. You and I have worked on projects together. So I'm saying that from my own personal experience. So to kind of help some listeners unpack this a little bit, because again, marketing is like this weird beast and we sometimes don't understand how it fits. But can you kind of step us back a little bit and break out what is marketing, brand, PR, and sales? And then how do they all work together?
This is a great question. Actually, I think you might have heard recently an analogy based on the circus. And it's a great analogy that someone made I saw it on TikTok. I'm not sure where this person posted it, but it was a nice like way to boil down what each of the things that are part of like bringing something to market. So we call it not in marketing, but in business, we call it go to market. You'll hear it often referred to as GTM. And that includes a variety of things. So in this video, they phrased it slightly different than I would have phrased it, but the point was still quite the same. So I actually wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I got it right. So marketing essentially is the mechanism that creates desire. And that could be desire through sales, through press, through creative. It's kind of like the umbrella, or in this case, the big top that holds the show together, right? Then you've got advertising within marketing. And so that can be, if we're talking about the circus, a billboard, signs, potentially things that you see online. So this is where you start to get what we call in marketing impressions. And it's kind of impressions of people looking at your billboard, but also of looking at your advertisements online. One you can track, the other you can't. Then you've got brand. And brand is the thing that kind of builds trust with your audience. So, I always like to say Nike might have the most distinguishable brand in the world. I'd say Disney is another one. And what they've done is they've created a relationship with you over time, and they've built trust in their brand. So when you see them, like, you don't even have to think about what do. They immediately evoke something in you that responds. I'll give you a really great example. Recently, I was thinking about buying a battery charger, and I saw an ad immediately after that on my social media from Anchor, and I was like, done, sold. I knew that was going to be a great product. I bought it, and I didn't have to think about it after that. So I had an immediate response. That's really good brand building. Then you've got things like promotional elements. And that video, I think they sort of said, well, there's a sign on an elephant, and that's considered promotion. So that's pretty accurate. Then you've got press, and press would be something that is related to kind of organic media. And what I mean by that is journalists are talking about it. People are talking about it. If something bad happened, the press team comes in and they try and, recreate the image. So it's not horrible. If that elephant stomps on somebody and kills them, you have a press team that's going to deal with it. Sorry, I don't mean to bring death into the conversation.
Way to make it really macabre. Thanks.
Then you've got sales, and that's sort of like your final conversion. So if you think about marketing as like opening up a funnel for you, at some point you have to make revenue. And so the revenue is your sales mechanism. And so that's the box office. That's the people who are going to sell your tickets and get the butts in the seats. And so in the example that I saw on TikTok, it was like marketing is all of those things. And that is more or less true, because you've got demand marketing, which is working with sales. You've got press marketing, which is working with PR. And you've got, kind of overall creative content marketing, all those things. They all fit under marketing. But it also is kind of, you can also silo it to some degree and say that this is the mechanism for creating that desire. So that's kind of, I might have given you a long-winded answer, and hopefully it cleared things up, but that's kind of how I like to approach it.
No, and it's interesting hearing that, your interpretation of breaking it down. And it feels like, especially with realtors, it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like we hover between marketing and branding.
Yes.
When we're outside of sales.
Yeah.
Like, you recently bought a house, like, you're realistically, statistically not going to sell for another 14 years. And so this selling is going to happen. It's long tail. And it's basically when you re-engage either marketing or branding. So it feels like with agents, we should be spending the time on the brand and the marketing, like in conjunction.
Yeah, that's extremely important, because things are shifting. I think people need to ask less about how do I get somebody to convert, and more about how do I get somebody to know me. LinkedIn just recently did this amazing presentation and sort of confirmed some suspicions that I had, which is that, let's say you have 100 people who are in your personal funnel. 5 of those people are ready to activate. And when I say activate, they're ready to start looking at houses. They're ready to buy, maybe. So now you have 5% of your funnel. And the question is, how many of those 5 are going to go to you or potentially go to another agent? Because you have 6,000 agents in San Francisco. I think that was the number that I heard from you.
Yeah. Staggering number.
Staggering. So, maybe you get 1 or 2 of those people to stick. But how do you get them to stick? Well, you've got this other 95% that you've got to work on. And then eventually they become that 5% again. So a lot of people are missing out on the 95%. So 95 people are there waiting to hear from you and have you build, you have to proactively build the relationship with them. They're not going to do it with you. And I think in an industry like yours, that personal touch is absolutely everything. It's not like you're a product and somebody signs up for a 30-day free trial. You are spending your personal time. They are spending their personal time, and it becomes a very intimate relationship. So how do you build the intimacy prior to them becoming that ready to convert 5%?
You literally hit the nail on the head, because the National Association of Realtors put out a stat of what buyers and sellers are looking for. The top answer, which was 30%, 36% of all buyers and sellers want to work with somebody, an agent with a good reputation. Not negotiating skills, not market skills, not neighborhood knowledge. They want a good relationship. And then the second most popular, 18%, was they want their agent to be trustworthy. And both of those, to your point, are 100% hinged on relationship.
Yeah. If I'm going to recommend to any of my friends an agent that is going to help them move over $1 million in capital into a home, I'm going to make sure that I trust and love the person that I'm going to tell them about. It's not going to be someone I just, saw on the side of a bus. It takes a lot more work than that.
For most people, and I would venture like the high 90% of most people, their home is their number one largest investment. And so the referral, no one wants to, like, you have your own reputation. You don't want to tarnish your reputation by recommending somebody who you just saw on a billboard to the CEO of a company you're working with, or a CEO friend that you have. Like, you want to make sure that that person's taken care of. And the only way that's going to happen is by trusting fully that person you're connecting them to.
Yeah, at this level, reputation is everything.
Agents at this point can get people to know them in many different avenues. And in person is obviously pretty challenging. And so we're probably going to lean on some sort of marketing collateral that's outbound. How would you recommend somebody goes about deciding what vehicle they should use? Should they use social media? Should they try to build an email list and do newsletters? Like, how would you guide somebody to approach that piece of the puzzle?
This is going to be like the answer that nobody wants to hear, which is that it depends. It's like my classic consulting answer. But it does depend. And I'll tell you why, because what's your goal? Like, is your goal to get a phone call? Is your goal to have more people visit your website? Is your goal to sell a house? Like, I mean, obviously you want to sell the house. But how are you measuring the success of a marketing effort? And I always say, just start there. That's the most important thing. Because if you can't decide what the goal is, how do you know that something's successful?
My favorite book that I've given away more than any other book is It's Not How Good You Are, It's How Good You Want to Be, from Paul Arden. And when you literally open the first page, it says, without a goal, you cannot score.
Yeah, I know. Imagine having a soccer match without nets. That'd be bananas. I say, if you can define that, even if this is the thing, you don't have to be totally 100% sure. And what I mean by that is that it's okay to make a very educated guess. And in these scenarios, the guess should come from your data. Like, what data do you have qualitatively? What do you know? What data does the agency you work for have about your market? What are all the things that you're collecting that can give you some information? Even your social media posts, like there's stats everywhere. And if you're not collecting data, drop everything and do that now. That is absolutely the hands down number one thing that you should have. Don't put your finger in the air and hope that you get the direction of the wind, because it's not going to happen.
Interesting.
Data is power. Data is power. Data helps you derive something insightful. It helps you move in the right direction. And when you've got the goal, you need to be able to measure that goal. How do you know something's successful? So you've got your goal. Okay, great. You've got to measure the goal. How many kicks did it take to get into the net? And it's really easy to collect data, but I think it can be a little daunting. Some people are like, no, that's not the kind of brain I have. But there's a lot of free information out there. And there's a lot of free ways to collect data on your website. You can use Google Analytics, totally free, very comprehensive. And I would start with those two things. And then think about, work backwards from there. Like, okay, so I'm going to get 10 people to sign up for my newsletter. How do you get those 10 people? How many media impressions or social media messages did it take to get one person? And then multiply that by however many you want in your funnel. And you just sort of work backwards. That's kind of the simplest way to do it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't experiment. It just means that, if you have limited time and you have limited money, you have to be as smart with it as you possibly can.
The number one search on YouTube is how to. And so that's obviously a phenomenal resource. And then the other phenomenal resource, shameless plug, is Realtor 180. I sit down with amazing agents weekly, and they literally tell their secrets. And so if you just take notes of, and I will share one now, is Instagram is the number one platform agents use. And the trick is they're not marketing to their buyers or sellers. They're marketing for referrals to other agents.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And this actually will back in really elegantly to the first question, which actually comes from Kat on my team, who asks, if despite executing the recommended marketing plan, such as posting during peak demographic times, crafting creative social media content, etc., and witnessing no improvement or engagement or growth in followers or subscribers, what should be the subsequent action in evaluating the strategy?
That's an incredibly good question. And this goes back to the data. So it sounds like the data has informed you that you're plateauing. And if you're plateauing, what does that mean? Does that mean that your content has gotten stale? Does that mean your messaging has gotten stale? Your creative has gotten stale? And this is where I recommend stopping what you're doing and trying something entirely new. Now, the question is, what is that? This goes back to market research. Go to all the people that you follow that are in your field and see what they're doing and see how many likes that they get, see how many engagements they get, and start moving towards that. It has to be authentic to you, because if it's not, people can see through your bullshit pretty quickly. But this is the scenario where testing a couple things would actually be a worthwhile effort. And sometimes, just sometimes, there's a lull in online activity. It's just kind of the way it is. So an example is this time of year. If you look at retail, it goes up this time of year, but every other industry is on a decline. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but mostly the globe shuts down for a couple of weeks. So that's also, you want to make sure that when you're looking at your data, that you're looking at it in context to whatever else is going on. If you're seeing it consistent over a long period of time, then that means that you've just got a messaging problem.
That's a very interesting way to look at it, is the seasonality within the big, you have seasonality within the real estate industry, then you have seasonality within the globe, the US or your state or city. It's a very interesting essentially a way to look at it. This actually will back into the next question. This actually comes from my friend, Lucas Pinto, who was also on the podcast.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That was actually a really interesting one because he really focused on not only investing, but the work-life balance of having goals in different areas of your life. But he runs the Lucas Pinto Group out of Seattle, Washington. His question is, for agents, what's the number one platform you'd focus on in 2024? And how often would you post if you were just, I'll add to this, but if you were just starting blind without having any data?
It depends. Let's take a shot every time you hear me say that. We'll gamify the episode. Well, let's go back to what's your goal? And then I think actually you said something, 2 minutes ago that I found interesting, which is Instagram is the top channel for agents to do their marketing. So that's something to think about. But who are you going after? So if I am in luxury real estate, I'm pulling this out of thin air, but if I'm in luxury real estate, I probably want to target people who are in the Bay Area. Maybe I want a tech executive. Where do I find tech executives? They're probably on LinkedIn. So think about the channel that's appropriate for the audience that you're going for. Instagram is quite unique in that it spans ages. Although I feel like my kids are starting to just move towards Snapchat, but they're in a younger demographic. They're not quite ready to buy a house. But I think you will still get a good cross section of people who might be in that like age range that are ready to buy. TikTok is definitely obviously really popular. I think it gets a bad rap, but I personally have found incredibly useful executive information on there, marketing information, sales information. I've learned a lot. There's certain people I follow. So if you have good information, this is a great channel for you. And I think Instagram and TikTok, you can kind of leverage each other's content. Snapchat, you probably want to avoid Snapchat. I'm not sure how many adults and adults that are ready to buy are on that channel. Reddit actually is sometimes one of those like sneaky channels where people are highly affected by the content that they see on it. They're crazy subreddit fans. I've had a lot of success advertising on subreddits, but it's a little tricky. You can't really advertise for yourself. So when you go in, you have to go in as a user, which builds some credibility. So it goes back to that, like, how do you build trust? I think my advice though would be to choose one channel to start with and go all in on that channel. So if Instagram is the easiest way to do it, I'd say do that. It's actually a pretty simple, a simple one to use. And unfortunately, you're going to have to post multiple times a day. The algorithm kind of requires it. There are something like 6 billion images posted to the internet every day. So how do you cut through that? So you have to be consistent. You have to make sure you're, researching the right hashtags. And you can actually sponsor some ads.
I really appreciate what you said. And I just want to go back and kind of lean on that point is what's your goal? Who's your audience? And all of your communication should be around that. And I know for like on my personal channels, they're my personal channels, so I don't really care. I'm not actually trying to build a following. I'm just showing people me. And where I tend to have a lot of different topics, and it's like, it kind of scattergraphs. Whereas for a business, if it's hubbed around one thing, like luxury buyers don't give a crap about first-time buying. And they just don't care about a lot. They want to know specifically what's in it for them and how you're going to help them. But the other reality is they're not hanging out with realtors on Instagram to find their agent. They're going to other channels, and it's usually through a personal connection.
It's a good point.
It comes back to goal. It sounds like
you said something that I think is worth looking at, which is that, what is somebody looking for?
Yeah.
I think we make a lot of assumptions about what people are going to get excited about and what they want, but is that actually true?
Yeah.
You're right. If you're going for somebody who may not be interested in first time buying content, they have a lot of money to spend. And what do they care about? They probably care about the location. They probably care about having a lot of space. They probably care about maybe they care about what schools are in their area, maybe not. But you have to think about what is their goal with, and ask people. Like, that's just the thing. And I think I might have even said this in the previous episode. Like, you really have to get to know people. You got to do your research. Do a survey. Like, you can very inexpensively send a survey out to everybody in your contact database and give them an incentive reward for doing it if you want. And just find out exactly what they want. Just ask them some simple questions.
I would even slightly tweak that, is especially with agents, is grab 5 buyers who recently purchased with you and ask them into the office and say, hey, I just want to pick your brain for 30 minutes about your experience, and learn from them firsthand. And if you're not selling them anything and you're just genuinely ask questions, the beautiful upside is most of the time people want to help. And then the second thing is you're going to build a much better bond with them. Like, you're hanging out with them.
Yes, I totally agree.
Then they realize, to go back to you being a home buyer and making a referral, they know you're actually listening and they know you actually care. And you're not taking their time or the relationship casually. Like, you're really invested in them and you're trying to bring the bar up in your business. And so, yeah, I mean, my 2 cents is to do it in person and make it a great experience for them.
I think that if that's an option, I totally agree with that. It really, I spend a lot of time calling customers and clients for various organizations that I've worked for, and it prevents a lot of customer churn, which I think is probably something that agents experience a lot. Is essentially them not becoming repeat customers to you. So, if not only you're asking them their opinion, but they can see the result of that opinion taking place, you've got them.
And enough for nothing, if they're not coming back to you, either you didn't continue to market with them after the fact, or they didn't have a good experience. And sitting down and talking to them is a form of marketing. So you're actually improving that line item. And if they didn't have a good experience, you're actually learning how to fix it. You're giving them an opportunity to be heard, and they're being heard. People want to be heard, especially in this noisy time of social media. And then on the flip side, you're improving your business. You're actually leveling up your business and your team for doing it. So it's net, there's a huge win. The next question comes in from Blake Binns. I was actually on his podcast a while back, actually during like peak COVID. He has the Good Advice podcast, which it's basically a resource for entrepreneurs and business owners. Really great if you ever have a chance to listen to it. I actually find it really inspirational. His question is, how do you balance having a message that is clear with having a message that is compelling?
So I actually really like this question, because creating either a clear message or a compelling message is incredibly hard. Trying to distill down everything that you want to say into something that people will understand is far more complex than writing a piece of content for a blog. And I promise you that. So I actually like to go back, and I like to kind of have this like nerdiness thing that I can't help, but I go into an Excel spreadsheet or maybe I go into like a mural board, and I do 2 things. One, I do kind of like a layout of all of my capabilities. So for instance, I'm going to give you an example as if I were a product, and I'm going to depend on you to relate it back to being an agent. Loom Video is a great example. They are it's a video system that sits on your desktop and allows you to record tidbits that you could send as videos to your internal teams. It's like, here's how I want you to do things, or here's an example of this. And that way you don't have to meet with them. You just send them the Loom. It does a bunch of other stuff, but that's what I primarily use it for. So the feature is that they are a video and screen recording tool. Now, if I just describe that, So is Zoom. So is Fathom. Like there's so many of these tools on the market right now. So why would I use Loom? So let's break down. And I would imagine as an agent, yeah, I'm selling a house or I am selling your house. Um, that's your feature. That's like the thing that, you do. What's your capability and what's the benefit from using you? So back to Loom, it's like I can record a really quick demonstration and I can share it with my entire team. And it's easy as pie. But the benefit is that I've decreased my meetings by 30%. So that's a significant benefit to somebody who is working with almost completely remote teams and also has very little time because I'm an executive and I'm like stretched beyond the standard 9 to 5 hours. So if you can kind of think about the different capabilities that set you apart, and then what is the benefit to the person who is using you as their agent? What are they getting? And focus on that. Because people at the end of the day, they don't care that you're selling a house. They know you're selling a house to them, or they know you're going to sell their house to someone. That's, 6,000 other people can do that. Why would I go with Shawn Kunkler? What is it that you do that's different? And how does that benefit me? And from there, you can really start to boil down the message. And that message is your unique value proposition that makes you stand out from the other guy saying, hey, I'll save you 10% on this sale or because I'm or I'll make your experience. I can get you a house in 6 months. No problem. I don't know if that's realistic in the Bay Area, but I think clarity is more important than compelling, but the compelling should come through that clarity because you know what you're giving them and you want them to know what they're getting. And so it's a little bit of like, again, working backwards. Like I suggest mapping it out, doing I love mural boards. I love being able to place Post-it notes on a wall. Just do it really visually, work it out, use the Lean Business Canvas if it helps, which I use at every company I've ever been with. And well, not every company because it's not that old, but several recent companies and any personal projects. I look at that and I go, okay, this is the messaging I can use, and here are my resources to use it.
You've reminded me. My addiction is I actually love watching Shark Tank, and I'll usually watch it more recently. I hop on the treadmill every morning for 20 minutes, and I've been watching them. And you can usually within the first 30 seconds of their pitch, if they're going to be in a good trajectory or not. And that pitch is basically the synopsis of their business. And like, is it clear, concise, and succinct, or do they ramble, or does it just sound like we do a good job? You're like, well, everybody does a good job. Like that's not a differentiator. But I appreciate the way you unpack that for us.
If you take the time to do it, even if you don't get it right, people will notice. And you'll notice the difference between old marketing and new marketing.
Yeah, it moves the needle. I mean, and I think on the flip side is, especially with entrepreneurs, especially with realtors, is perfection will kill you. And so if you're 85%, that's good. Like there's no typos. For the most part, it looks good. Run with it and test. Go try it, but don't try to make it 99%. You won't get anything out. You'll never get there. You won't get it out. You'll never test. You'll never have any results. And you'll be right back where you were a year later with nothing happening.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. This one, it's going to kind of change gears a little bit. But Jason Rowland, my good buddy out of Chicago, who is the lead of the Rowland Group, he asked, where do you see AI taking real estate lead generating marketing in the future?
Oh God, I love this question. So I've been involved with AI for some time, and I've been leaning really heavily into it lately. And I think it's nothing to be afraid of, which is good news. I think currently there's some things that you can do with it that will help you kind of envision how you can use it in the future. But I have some thoughts about that as well. One primary thing I use it for is taking the mundane tasks off of my plate. Anything that I have to do on a regular basis, I just automate in AI because it's something that could take me an hour. I can do in 5 to 10 minutes through ChatGPT or Google Bard, which is actually when it first launched was not so great and is quite excellent now and getting better. You can automate your social media presence. So there's a ton of tools out there that will create your content for you, post your content for you, and optimize your content for you. Some of those, I think the tricky part will be the creative at that point. Some of them come with creative, some of them don't. I think you just have to go through and figure out which ones that do. And research and analysis, you can actually upload an Excel spreadsheet with a ton of data in it and ask it questions to help get to the bottom of some research that you need to do. But you can also do qualitative research. Like you can't do this with current GPT, but if you have GPT Pro, it's looking at more current data versus data from 2 years ago. I highly recommend making the $20 a month upgrade. It's well worth it. Plus you get the usage of Dolly and some other tools. It'll get you quotes. It'll get you research. It's kind of never ending. You just keep asking it questions. It'll tell you when it can't do it. And so I use it a lot for researching personas. When I'm trying to figure out who I'm talking to, I do a lot of research through that. I think also I would imagine you can probably do property searches, pricing insights. I know there's virtual tours. Chatbots are something that might be interesting if you need to have basic conversations with someone and you just don't have the time to answer the phone. These chatbots sound like real people, but you do have to feed them a lot of information. It's not something that just happens naturally. So there is some time. There's still man-made or person-made influence on it. But where do I think it's going is kind of where I'm really excited. Like, I think we're going to see property management where it automates rent collection for people who are buying multi-tenant or multi-unit properties. I think it will do screenings. I think it will also, one example that might be good, which we talked about a little bit earlier, is like, what is somebody who is not a first-time buyer with a lot of money? What are they looking for? If get a collection of all the things that your customer is looking for, put it into ChatGPT and see what they recommend, what neighborhoods they might recommend, what house they might recommend. I think we're going to see that fairly soon. They can probably do risk assessments if somebody is a borrower. I think to go really far down the road, we're going to see robots. We're going to see robots developing properties and doing construction. I think that's a little bit further down the road, but it's like you just pull the thread on the sweater and you're going to see it unravel into all of these things. And it's all very cool stuff.
I agree. And it's interesting that you brought up the property management because Jason, a portion of his business, a silo within his team, is property management. And it's interesting with AI, we always, not always, but humans like to default to the negative. It's going to take away from this. It's going to take, but it actually is going to make something easier so we can skill up and do something bigger, more complex, and work on other components of it. So it's actually just making some of the processes faster. And then to go to your point with the ChatGPT and it learning, or the AI and learning, within the real estate industry, there's AI that's for agents, used by agents. And so it's actually it's learning much faster because we're all feeding it collectively as an industry. And so there's some like bots and things like that where it's already being fed at a much faster pace than as an individual trying to teach it or educate it, which I actually think is pretty cool. And it does help.
I think the real estate industry is always on the cutting edge. I think there's a couple industries that are willing to try everything first. So it doesn't surprise me. And I'm not sure what Compass is doing, but I bet Compass is doing a lot. And I bet that they really allow you to experiment with it. So I think, just do it. What you said before, like we like to worry about it so much. And I think there are some ethical standards that should be set with AI. But it's like, if you have a cranky boss, what do? You want to embrace them and be curious about them and get them onto your side. It's the same thing with AI. Embrace it. Like, figure out how to work with it. How does it make you better at what you do? And I use it to save me time. That is honestly the biggest gift I've had with it.
And when you save that time, you as an individual then have the opportunity to go learn a new skill or to apply it somewhere else, and you get to level up. And that was kind of my point of, like, it's freeing us up to go do something better. It's like, instead of doing math longhand, you can use a calculator. Great. Now you're not spending an hour doing that. You're spending 5 minutes. Now you got 55 minutes to go do something more complex. And that's basically how I view personally the AI tool.
Yeah.
The last question that came in, which is, this timed out really well. I like it. Grant Inaba, who I'm actually good friends with him as well. He was on the podcast and has the Good Agent Real Estate team they're out of the Bay Area. So we compete a little bit, but not so much, because I specialize in San Francisco. But his question is, if there was one quick and easy thing, we always want quick and easy, clearly, we're agents. But if there's one quick and easy thing we can do that created results within marketing, what would that be?
So I would get your shot glass ready, because it depends. I'm going to go back to a previous answer, which is that you have to set your goals first. Like, again, like, what is results? What does that mean for you? Is it just brand recognition? Do you want people talking about you, or is it to get a lead, or what is it? Without that, nothing's going to be easy. And then you want to think about, again, back to even another question, which is, where are the people? So if your people are on LinkedIn, target them on LinkedIn. And the great thing actually about LinkedIn, is that you can really, really target them. If you sign up for LinkedIn advertising, you could really pigeonhole the people that you need to talk to. But where you don't have money, you need to make time. So I would say, what are the ways that you can create bigger impressions? Shawn, you did something, I can't remember. It was several years ago at this point, and it was awesome. But you threw a big backyard garden party. And you had live music.
Pre-COVID. Love those days.
Pre-COVID. Yeah. It was a cool venue. It was like one of the coolest venues I've ever seen. And I don't know what you got from that, but I can imagine that would have paid off a lot more than you trying to do an advertisement on a social media channel. And I know that you invited a lot of people that weren't your clients as well. That was amazing. So I things where you can kind of pack a lot of punch into it, put a little bit of investment in it. Maybe you collect everybody's information. How do you do it? You have to think about all the different ways to do it. Email marketing, honestly, is still tried and true. Personally, I hate emails, but I still open the damn emails from the companies I really like. Or I open every Homeward Associate email. I love them. They're one of my favorite emails to get. Yeah, they're great. And there's a lot of thoughtfulness put into it. And I'm a native San Franciscan, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that. So it gives me a lot of information about the area that I would maybe not otherwise have looked at myself. So that's good content. You're not actually asking me to connect with you. You are just connecting with me. based on some needs that I have. And so that's something to consider as well. So I don't have the greatest answer for you, Grant. I'm so sorry. But it's there. You just have to ask different questions of yourself.
I'll go back to the event and kind of unpack that. So that was pre-COVID. And so we're now obviously trending out of it. And it's funny, we've been working on our 2024 business plan, and we've actually baked in now, we're having quarterly events, and then we're also doing community activities. We'll be doing those quarterly. So we're really ramping up those. And the garden party, we probably had 30, maybe 40 people in total. The big cross section were past clients. This was amazing, though. We had a band. I wound up helping the drummer sell his house and buy another house. I helped the singer buy a house. I helped the photographer buy a house. I helped probably 3-ish people from that sell and buy. And then a lender, including you, so more. And then I had multiple people, I don't know the exact number, probably 3 to 4, of people who had family out of state who needed help with an agent. So I got referrals out of that. The lender, him and I think later throughout the year, we wound up doing about 9 deals together. So his business did really well. That one event teed up my entire year in a completely different trajectory. And it literally changed the shape of my business. And that really just goes back to the in-person. The in-person is really, for real estate, it's really important. And then to your point, the newsletters are almost like supplemental to just keep, because events are expensive. They're time consuming. They're hard to plan. There's a lot of things that are a lot of moving parts, but the newsletter it's an easy piece to keep moving forward. The newsletter, there's 5 major sections to give context to people. One tiny line, not even, it's a small paragraph, and they're short paragraphs. It talks about how the market's trending, and there's a hyperlink if you're curious. The rest of it is about community. It's like what really cool property is up for sale or recently sold, or someone famous traded, or whatever it may be. We always feature a local business, and we try to find something within that business. And then we always put a spotlight on our clients of how a challenge that we help them guide them through. But it's about like the community, the events, the store. Like we're trying to promote other people. So thanks for acknowledging that. And thank you for reading it.
Yeah.
As you know, with marketing, like you send and send and send, but you're not always like 100% until people give you feedback. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I've even posted it to my social media because one particular email really resonated with me. And so, keep doing what you're doing, Shawn. You're doing an amazing job.
That's my team behind us, who they understand the vision of the direction we're going, the communication, and it's definitely a group effort. Man, this really flew by. I just looked up at the clock, and we're actually at the top of the hour. So that's going to round out this session. But if anybody has questions for Louda, please just post them in the comments below, and then I'll bug her to make sure she answers them for you, or we'll figure out a way to connect everybody. And then last but not least, if you're finding value in these episodes, please hit that subscribe button, and we can keep landing in your inbox each week. So with that, that's a wrap.
Great. Thank you, Shawn.